Stop buying overpriced European air rifles just because you think the big box store brands cannot keep up. Look, I hear it all the time. Guys say Gamo is just a cheap plastic toy for shooting tin cans in the backyard. But here is the truth. If you are still judging them by the clunky spring piston guns from 10 years ago, you are dead wrong. The 2026 lineup has completely rewritten the rules of the game. We are talking inertia-fed 10-shot magazines that refuse to double-load cold hammer-forged barrels, and gas pistons throwing heavy lead with genuine knockdown power. Honestly, you do not need a $2,000 rig to clear pests out of your property. I am breaking down the top 5 Gamo air rifles on the market right now. No marketing fluff, just the raw specs and real-world performance. Number 5, the Gamo Arrow PCP. Look, the historical barrier to entry for pneumatic rifles has always been the insane cost of the fill equipment. Gamo built the Arrow to completely disrupt that model for the 2026 season. They gave this thing a tiny 128cc air cylinder that you can easily fill with a cheap hand pump in just a few minutes. You are getting up to 60 shots per fill, pushing 22 caliber lead at 900 feet per second. Now for the mechanic's insight. The Arrow uses a straight pull charging handle located right at the rear of the receiver. Instead of a clunky side lever, you pull the T handle straight back to index the 10-shot rotary magazine and cock the hammer. Then push it straight forward to seat the pellet. It keeps your sight picture perfectly aligned because the motion is entirely linear. But here is the deal breaker. The build quality is heavily reliant on polymer. 80% of the structural components are encased in composite plastic. So if you want the classic feel of blued steel and walnut, this will feel a bit like a toy in your hands. When you settle in behind it, the 2-stage trigger breaks like snapping a dry pine needle. And thanks to the Whisper Fusion dual expansion chambers, the firing sound is nothing more than a quiet mechanical thud. This thing is a fantastic lightweighter rig for dropping small game and spring turkeys without blowing your budget. But listen closely. If you think this little pester is impressive, wait until you see the absolute slug-slinging monster sitting on the throne at number 1. Stepping up the power and the handling, we have the Gamo Swarm Viper 10X Gen 3i. If you want the self-sufficiency of a brake barrel without the exhausting cocking effort of a Magnum, this is your sweet spot. Gamo built the Viper with an incredibly focused chassis. They dropped the slippery plastic for an automotive-grade glass-filled nylon stock wrapped in aggressive rubberized inserts. The raised cheek pad automatically aligns your eye perfectly with a traditional day optic. Honestly, you want to keep a lightweight rig like this fast and clean, not bogged down with bulky thermal gear. Here is the mechanic's insight on that 10X Gen 3i loading system. Previous multi-shot brake barrels used a mechanical linkage that would double load a pellet if you closed the barrel without firing. The Gen 3i system severs that physical link completely and uses an inertia-fed mechanism. The magazine only indexes to the next round when it feels the massive bidirectional recoil impulse of the gun actually firing, making double feeds mechanically impossible. But here is the deal breaker on performance. It relies on the standard IGT gas piston instead of the Mach 1. That means your kinetic energy caps out around 24 joules, making it an excellent ratter, but lacking the raw knockdown power you want for taking out larger pests at a distance. When you pull through that custom action trigger, it breaks cleanly like a thin glass rod. Thanks to the Whisper Maxim dual chamber system, the muzzle report pops like a heavy staple gun rather than a rimfire rifle. This rig is all about balance, requiring only 30 pounds of cocking effort so you can shoot all day without your arm falling off. Closer to the crown, we have the Gamo Swarm Fusion 10X Gen 3i. If your main priority is keeping the neighbors completely unaware of your pest control operations, this is the rig you want in your hands. While it shares the same reliable gas piston as the Viper, the Fusion pushes the boundaries of acoustic attenuation by stretching the overall barrel length out to 20.5 inches. Here is the mechanic's insight on that Whisper Fusion technology. It does not just throw a plastic hollow tube on the muzzle like the cheaper models. It forces the high-pressure air following the pellet to strip away into two completely isolated expansion chambers. As the air enters these sequential chambers, the volume increases rapidly, which drops the pressure instantly, killing the turbulent shock wave before it ever has a chance to exit the muzzle and alert your target. But here is the ergonomic deal breaker you need to know about before you drop your cash. That sleek thumbhole stock looks amazing on a gun rack, but it forces your shooting hand into a very rigid and tight upright position. If you have larger hands or you are hunting in the cold with thick gloves, that pistol grip area gets incredibly cramped and can seriously mess with your natural finger placement on the trigger blade. Speaking of the trigger, the two-stage pull snaps like a crisp carrot when you find the wall. Because of that massive dual expansion chamber, the firing sound is reduced to a dull thud like dropping a thick phone book onto a carpet. It delivers a solid 17 foot-pounds of kinetic energy, making it highly lethal for small rodents while keeping your backyard operations totally under the radar. Entering the elite tier, we have the legendary Gamo Urban PCP. Look, in a market flooded with cheap plastic air guns, this rig stands out because of its absolute pure blood accuracy. Gamo bought out BSA in the United Kingdom, and they slapped a genuine British cold hammer forged steel barrel right onto this .22 caliber workhorse. Here is the mechanic's insight on that barrel construction. Instead of just cutting rifling into a soft steel tube, cold hammer forging takes a massive steel blank and beats it over a precision mandrel with immense hydraulic pressure. This compresses the molecular structure of the steel, creating rifling so perfectly consistent that this gun can easily hold 1-inch groups at 50 yards without breaking a sweat. But here is the financial deal breaker you need to swallow. It uses a proprietary quick fill probe instead of a standard American Foster fitting. That means if you lose that tiny piece of brass in the tall grass during a hunt, you are forced to buy an expensive replacement just to get air back into your cylinder. When you pull the trigger, it snaps like breaking a piece of peanut brittle. Because it lacks a massive spring piston, the firing cycle is dead smooth, and the Whisper Maxim moderator drops the report to nothing more than a soft sneeze. You get 30 highly consistent shots per fill at 232 bar, delivering nearly 29 joules of energy directly into your target. It is arguably the most reliable mid-tier pneumatic hunter on the market today. We have looked at rigs that give you incredible stealth and pneumatic rifles that deliver pure cold hammer forged precision. But when you are staring down a heavy pest at 50 yards in the brush, silence and finesse do not always drop animals in their tracks. Sometimes you need raw, unapologetic kinetic energy. Taking the absolute top spot on this list is the undisputed king of the brake barrels, the Gamo Swarm Magnum 10X Gen 3i. This rig gives you the rapid-fire convenience of the Swarm Fusion, but it completely dwarfs it in sheer destructive power. It pushes heavy 25 cal lead with a level of terminal ballistics that puts the Gamo Arrow PCP to absolute shame. We are talking about 45 joules of energy slamming into your target, enough to anchor medium-sized game instantly. Here is the mechanic's insight on how it generates that devastating power. The secret is the massive IGT Mach 1 gas cylinder hidden inside the stock. Standard piston air guns use a 25mm tube, but this beast uses an oversized 33mm internal chamber. When you apply the 41 pounds of force required to cock this rifle, you are compressing an immense volume of inert gas. Upon firing, it displaces a massive column of air through the transfer port, launching those heavy projectiles without the metallic twang and spring fatigue you get from traditional steel coils. You want to pair this with a rugged traditional day optic on the recoil-reducing rail, because the harsh bidirectional recoil will absolutely destroy fragile night vision or thermal gear. When you pull through the final stage, the trigger breaks like a heavy icicle snapping off a roof. Even with the Whisper Fusion moderator, the firing cycle hits your ears with a deep crack like a heavy bullwhip. It is big, it is heavy, and it hits like a freight train. Look, at the end of the day, picking the right air gun is all about matching the tool to the mission. If you are clearing pests out of a tight suburban backyard, that Whisper Fusion technology on the Arrow and the Swarm Fusion is going to keep you entirely off the radar. But if you need to reach out and anchor something heavy in the deep woods, that 33mm piston in the Magnum is the only answer. We saw a lot of flashy marketing and expensive gimmicks on the floor at SHOT Show 2026. But out here in the dirt, consistent performance is all that actually matters. Slap a reliable traditional day optic on any of these rigs, leave the heavy thermal gear at home, and you have everything you need to get the job done right. You now know what separates the serious shooters from guys still reading marketing catalogs.